Hey, you! Stop right there. Highly suspicious. I think I can charge you with hoarding books and a far too highly refined taste in literature. Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori. Now that I have my Ain't More Pork City Watch t-shirt officially, plan on me being completely insufferable for the foreseeable future. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. The camera is back a little ways and you're going to be seeing more of the shelf setup because today we are going to rehash the Read My Shelves journey that we started a while ago. I feel like it was the end of 2023, you guys. That we're not going to talk about how long ago it was because honestly, it's been too long. But as you guys know, the last few years I've been really focusing on reading books on my shelves. I work very hard to include as many books in my monthly TBR as possible from the physical shelves that I own, because it's very easy to book hoard, as we all know. Here on BookTube we're very good at that, and it's really easy to bring in tons and tons and tons of new books and neglect the ones that have been sitting patiently on our shelves. And sometimes we buy books that honestly we're not even gonna read at any point. We just like the look of them, or we think we're gonna read them, and then eventually we have to be honest with ourselves and be like, sorry, this isn't gonna work out. So we're gonna go through my entire collection, shelf by shelf, and we're gonna get really honest with ourselves about the books that I own, which ones I'm keeping out of obligation, or books that I'm keeping because I'm still in denial and not willing to admit that I'm probably never gonna read them. Because I want to do a big unhaul before my shelves get rearranged for some reason that will become clear in the very near future. One of the things that I will say is that I'm actually pretty good about getting rid of books that I read and didn't like. That's one of the reasons why my unread percentage is so high on my bookshelves, is because if I give a book 3 stars or less, typically it's out of here. Because I've shifted more from the building a library mindset now into a curating a library mindset. I've been on BookTube for 5 years. I've built this incredible library and I love it so much. And it's getting to a point now where I'm starting to think about what kind of books I want on my shelves, and I want to invest money in the books and series that I have loved and have meant a lot to me, as much as or more than bringing in new books all the time. So I've been doing better about bringing books in. I've been bringing in less, and typically the books that I've been purchasing are parts of series I've already read, or they're by an author that I've already enjoyed. And that's been really nice because just the sheer amount of books I was bringing in for a while at the beginning of my BookTube journey was a lot, and I was less selective, shall we say, about the ones that I was bringing in and buying. I'm actually not a super finicky collector in the sense that I do love my special editions, but I don't go out of my way to buy them. I'm not a collector in the sense that I want my shelves to look perfect and really put together. If I have some creased spines and some worn books with folded covers, that's okay with me. I'm happy to give them a home just as much as my special editions. So over on this side of the room, you will see my non-science fiction and fantasy shelf. These shelves, there's 5 of them and we'll go down each one, have historical fiction, they have non-fiction, they have literary fiction, mystery and thriller. It's really outgrowing itself, which you will see as we pan down to the lower part of this bookshelf. So we need to do something about that, and I'm trying really, really hard to be ruthless. We'll see how well I do. Over here, as you guys know, because you can usually see it behind me in all of my videos, we have the middle cubes, which consists of my favorite shelf. These are books that I really want to show off. As you can see, we've got our Gentleman Bastard, our Red Rising, my brand new City Watch hardcover collection, new Jade City Broken Binding editions, which were a birthday gift, early birthday gift from my wonderful and incredibly generous friend, Casey. Casey, you're amazing. Thank you so much. And also my paper and wick edition of Never Die. So these are not going anywhere. This will be a very easy shelf to go through because this shelf is not going to change. Underneath that, though, we have Starting science fiction and fantasy from A to Z on this first row of cubes, and then underneath that we have YA and some extra fantasy, and on the bottom we have a cube for translated works and also review copies. So the cubbies are packed. The cubbies are packed, and it kind of leads into my next two bookshelves over here, which are the science fiction and fantasy shelves. But also, as you can see up here, I do have a bunch of my manga up on the top shelf, which eventually I would love to bring down onto another shelf and actually give them a home that isn't teetering on the top of the bookshelf. Eventually. It's gonna happen, guys. It's gonna happen. This is all A to Z fantasy. Except for this middle shelf here, as you can see, is all Malazan universe. Malazan Book of the Fallen. I've got some E&C Eslamont here. This shelf will also not be changing because, as you guys know, I'm a big Malazan fan. I am currently rereading the series, and I do not plan on getting rid of any of the paperbacks at this point. So this shelf is safe. And so is the favorite shelf. So these two shelves we're going to be leaving alone. We're going to let them just kind of condescendingly laugh at the other shelves as we ruthlessly pick them apart. And then the one that I haven't shown you guys yet, but we'll go over there in a minute, is my mass market paperback and smaller paperbacks shelf. We're going to be really ruthless with the mass market paperback and small paperback shelf because I'm getting to a point where my hands do not handle holding open mass market paperback books very well, and it's hard for me to read them. It's not comfortable, and so most of the time I avoid that shelf because I just don't feel like picking those books up, which is really a tragedy, and I don't want to be like that, but here we are. So a lot of those books I'm eventually going to be converting into trade paperback editions so that they're easier for me to read, but some of them it's time for me to let go. So that's the shelf that's probably going to be the most bare by the time we get done, which will be lovely because that will allow me to move some extra, if I have second copies of certain things from the main fantasy shelves, I can move them over there so that they are not taking up space from everything else. I have pulled a few books already before we get started that I know I wanted to unhaul just briefly from the last couple of weeks. One of them is Fairy Tale by Raymond E. Feist. I bought this, no, I didn't buy this book. I was given this book by a friend of mine who we had plans to buddy read it together, and neither of us had read it before. We had only heard of Raymond Feist. I don't think either of us had read any of Feist's other work, but I became aware, thanks to a concerned friend, about some content in this book that he knew I was not going to like. And sure enough, after skimming through a little bit of that section, this book is leaving my home and I have no interest in reading it. So this one is going to be leaving us. And then also I pulled The Heirs of Babylon by Glenn Cook. I did actually get, I want to say, like 30% through this book a while ago. And I have read Chronicles of the Black Company, the first book in that series. And I started reading this and I was intrigued by it to some degree, but the writing style in this book and also in the Black Company just isn't my jam. So I would love to send this on to somebody else who is going to enjoy it a lot more than I will, because I just don't see myself coming back to it. And then you're gonna be like, Tori, how could you get rid of your Discworld books? Hang on, relax. I recently, as you guys just saw, got the hardcover editions of the City Watch books from my husband for my birthday, and I have been slowly transitioning these mass market paperbacks into the larger trade paperback editions because of the exact reason I mentioned before. They're harder for me to read, and I want to be able to have a paperback edition of the City Watch so that I can highlight in it, mark it all up, and not have to do that in my hardcover editions. I also am going to be getting rid of a couple of the other Discworld books that I currently have trade paperback replacements for. So these are all going to be going to new homes as well. All right, we have procrastinated as long as humanly possible. So now we are going to go over to our first shelf. We're going to start with the non-science fiction and fantasy shelf, and we're going to start with shelf number 1. let's go. All right, take two. I filmed this entire section and then realized that I hadn't actually pushed play on my camera, so let's do this again. So this shelf is, like I said, historical fiction for the most part. And the first book that I'm seeing, this is one, White Chrysanthemum by Mary Lynn Brocht. This is a book that I have picked up and put down so many times. And I don't know why, because it's set in historical era Korea, which is a historical fiction period that I absolutely love reading. But for some reason, this one just keeps, I don't know, making me put it back down. So I'm gonna put this in a separate pile that is gonna be for a vlog that I wanna do in the near future, where I'm going to do kind of a read it or unhaul it challenge, where I read maybe 50 pages of each book, and if I'm loving it, we're gonna put it back on the shelf or continue reading, or we're going to unhaul it. So we're gonna put that in that pile. And I'd really like to get to a point where I can fit King Rat on this shelf. I don't know, Wolf of Wessex. This is a historical fiction based in the very, very early pre-Viking era, and I really enjoy it. It's kind of a lone wolf and cub story. I think I do want to unhaul this one simply because I do want to get to some of Matthew Harvey's other work that I actually think I'm going to click with better. I enjoyed this, I had a good time with it, but I don't see myself going back and reading it again, and it's not necessarily something that I desperately want to keep on my shelf. June Her, I still need to read this one. Beasts of a Little Land by Joo Hee Kim. This is another book that I keep reaching for and putting back, which is problematic because it's, again, a South Korean historical fiction, which I don't know what's happening. I don't know who I am. I don't know what happened. But here we are. I still have not read this, and I think this one is going to be another book that I'm going to put in my read it or unhaul it vlog stack, because I've picked this up and put it back on the shelf so many times that it's starting to become a problem in my head. So we're gonna see if we can beat the slump with Beasts of a Little Land by Joo Hee Kim, and we're going to put it in the stack of read it or unhaul it books. All right, let's move on to the next shelf. More historical fiction and also some cozy mystery. The cozy mysteries are not going anywhere. Those are by my good friend Patricia Meredith, and they're amazing. You should definitely check them out. After that, we've got some more historical fiction. 5s and 25s. This one, I haven't really been feeling like more modern era war historical fiction yet. I know that that could very easily turn on a dime, so I'm bending my knees so I can actually see you guys. So I think I'm going to leave that one alone for now. My Lisa C collection, obviously, I'm going to be keeping. And I just purchased these Jeff Shara books recently because I wanted to build some hardcover collection of his because I really enjoy his work. I am planning on reading a couple of his books this year. I have read The Last Full Measure, which is one of his Civil War historical fiction books. And the rest of these I just recently purchased. So I think we're going to leave these alone. I actually did a little bit of work on this shelf earlier, sorry, and got rid of some books that were here so that these would fit. So I actually feel okay about this shelf. All right, this is the first shelf that's going to expose me a little bit. It's a hot mess. Part of that is because I do have a book missing from this shelf that I am currently kind of taste testing, which is Doohickey by Stephen King. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to finish reading it right now, but we shall see. So as you can see, you know what, we're just going to put this here for now. I know that's not where it goes. There's a lot of books on this shelf. I have gotten rid of a lot of books that I don't feel like reading, so a lot of these I'm still really interested in reading. Musashi. Okay, so my husband recently read this, and it is a chunk. It is like Bible thin pages, okay? And it's 1,000 of them. So I'm not afraid of a chunky book, don't get me wrong, but this one is one that I'm really kind of up in the air about. And the other thing too is I am reminding myself that I can utilize my library for some of these books. I don't do that enough, to be honest. And I don't know if this is one that I feel the need to own, especially not at this point. And my husband enjoyed the book, but he really just struggled to keep himself motivated through that entire 1,000 pages. So I'm kind of leaning toward unhauling this one, actually, and if I want to read it in the future, getting it from the library instead of owning it on my shelf. I haven't read a lot of these. That's, again, like I said before, because I have so many books that I have not read yet, I don't keep books that I read and don't love. So a lot of these are books that I still want to read. Billy Summers. Okay, I bought this book because I really wanted to do a test run of Stephen King. And the two books that I was recommended were Doomaky and Needful Things for my specific reading tastes. And then Billy Summers was one that I had kind of looked up on my own, and the synopsis sounded really interesting and maybe a little bit kind of in my wheelhouse. But I'm hesitant. I don't know. So this is one that I actually think I'm going to pull and put in the Read It or Unhaul It vlog, because I really don't know how Mr. King and I are going to get along, to be perfectly honest. I've DNF'd one book of his, but that was a Dark Tower book, so I don't feel like that's representative of his entire work. And I do want to taste test a couple other of his books. Some of his main books I know that I don't really have any interest in. So I think that Billy Summers is going in our Read It or Unhaul It pile for the vlog. This is going to be a very interesting combination of reads when we get that far. I'm kind of looking forward to it, actually. So that gives us a little bit of space here at the end and means that we can take this beautiful copy of Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro and put it here on the shelf, which is lovely. And as you'll see when we get to the next shelf, that space is going to disappear immediately. So let's go down one more level, and I'm going to do my absolute best not to destroy my knees trying to get to these lower shelves. Give me a second. Can you see my problem? So this is my memoirs and overflow from the literary fiction shelves, and it's a problem, as you can see. You know, and also I really envy the people that have enough space in their library room to actually like do a nice shot. I don't. I have like maybe 3.5, 4 feet between my shelves and my bed. And so I apologize for the up close and personal angle here, but I hope you'll bear with me. This is a problem, you guys. And I think there are definitely some books on here that we can move right along. Some of these that I know I'm keeping, I'm just going to take off right now. Okay, here's one. Be Frank with Me by Julia Claiborne Johnson. This is another book that I bought, I think, when I first started BookTube. It's a literary fiction about a older woman and her son, like a reclusive, she's a reclusive literary fiction author, and her 9-year-old son brings in a governess for him, and it's their story, which sounds really, really sweet. And I've picked it up and put it back so many times. So this is a book that I am definitely going to be putting in our Read It or Unhaul It challenge pile, because it's time. It's time for me to finally decide if I'm ready to read this book or not, and I need to figure out if I'm actually going to click with it or if I should just send it on to a new home. So these are all newer books. These are my, let me that one down here. These are some newer books that I just purchased from Keigo Higashino. Also my copy of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which is really lovely, and I adore this edition, so that's not going anywhere either because I still need to read it. And then last but not least, in terms of the piles, we have a new North Korean defector memoir, one that I read last month, which I would like to keep because it's fantastic. We've got some older memoirs, also just read this one last month and really loved it. Lord of the Flies. This was a book that I really enjoyed more than I thought I was going to. However, I think I would like to get, well, I don't know. This one's actually not too bad for a small paperback. However, I think we're going to be able to move it over to our smaller paperback shelf. And same with Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. I think both of these I will be able to move over to that smaller shelf, so we're gonna make another pile. And The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman is another one that I'm keeping and would like to reread. I have read The Yellow Wallpaper before. And also more Higashino books, which eventually I would love to be able to actually put those on the shelf because I really enjoy Higashino's work and I'm looking forward to having a nice little collection on the shelf. But right now they're just stacked because there's no room for them. I'm going through my memoirs right now and just trying to like decide if I really desperately need to keep these. I do really like the ones that I have. I think we're gonna keep that one for now. The rest of these memoirs, I just don't know. All right, The Commandos, The Making of America's Secret Soldiers from Training to Desert Storm. I purchased this first because I'm very interested in all of that process. However, I also bought it as possible kind of research material for a book that I wrote a few years ago. And I just don't know if this is one that I'm gonna get to because I'm really not sure. Like I said before, I'm really struggling with kind of the more modern military books right now, which is completely fine. And it's not to say that I won't ever go back to it. And this will still be on my TBR on Goodreads. So here's me talking myself into putting this in the unhaul pile, you guys. Ugh, okay, we did it. We did it. It's gone. It's in the pile. We're good. Okay. Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. Kristen Hanna is a general book community darling. She's very popular right now for writing historical fiction. And this one is rooted in two friends and their lives during the 1970s and forward. And it is a bit chunky, and this is one that I kind of picked up because I wanted to try something by Kristen Hanna. I don't know if this particular work of hers is going to be the right one for me to start with. I honestly don't know. But this is another one I think I'm going to put in the read it or unhaul it pile because I kind of just want to taste test it and see if it's something that I want to continue reading, if I jive with her writing style, etc. And this one has one of those really annoying, now on Netflix, stickers that you can't take off. Please, okay, book publishers, you see this? Please stop doing this. Please stop putting these on books, please. I understand, I get it, I really do. I understand the marketing, please stop. This is great because we've made some definite progress. However, this is not enough, you guys. This is not enough space. Okay, here's another read it or unhaul it challenge book, I think. This is called 24 Shadows by Tanya Peterson, and this is a story about a man with dissociative identity disorder, and I purchased it because I was curious and because the synopsis sounded like maybe, just maybe, this might have the potential to be a story about DID that wasn't horribly sensationalized. We will see. I am reserving judgment. But this is another one that I think I would like to test for the read it or unhaul it challenge because I don't know. I'm jaded. We'll just put it that way. Most of the books or films or TV shows or what have you that utilize DID in their storytelling don't do a fantastic job of it. So I'm skeptical, we'll put it that way. So that one is also going in our read it or unhaul it challenge pile, which gives us a tiny bit more room on this shelf. Okay, I don't know if you guys have seen, I'm sure most of you have seen these little comic strips from Strange Planet. This is a signed first edition of the first book that Nathan Pyle put out, and I love these so much. Another one that I have is Snug, which is also adorable, and it's just kind of really cute anecdotes from the lives of two people that live together and love each other, and it's adorable. If you're looking for something incredibly wholesome that will give you a smile, both of these are highly recommended. And I do have a little bit of room. Unfortunately, I have not as much room as I have books to fill the space that I am making. So cool. All right, Seabiscuit by Lauren Hillenbrand can come down here with Unbroken since she wrote both of them. True story of, we can move some of these up, I think. Do I want to put Frederick Bachman up here? Yeah, probably. How We Disappeared can go up there. That's more memoir-esque. That's more memoir-esque. This one is not. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Oh my goodness, look. Okay, that makes me incredibly happy inside. Put some of these up here. The Agatha Christie books, actually. This I think I can put with my, like, moving over to the mass market paperback shelf or a small paperback shelf. And I think My Name is Kyoko. I think these can both go on that shelf as well. We'll see how much room we have over there when we're done. More memoirs, so I can put these two memoirs on the shelf because I've read those. Okay, like, it's not as bad as it was. This is a sincere improvement, I think. I feel better about it. I can actually see the books in the back, and I'm actually going to move these over here so that we can appreciate these lovely Higashino books over here. Now that we can actually see them, I'm just going to move these up a little bit. Oh, beautiful. Now all that is left is to go down to the very bottom shelf, and I'm going to have to, like, lay on the floor or something to try and get to this shelf. So bear with me for a second. Okay. This is the view you didn't know you needed. No, and I didn't know I needed either. Okay. This is the classics and more literary fiction shelf and historical fiction and whatever else happens to find its way onto this shelf. As you can see, we have more stacks. So some of these are books that I'm definitely not getting rid of. This one, you guys, there is a postal receipt in this book from 2000. It's 25 years ago. Shout out to the wonderful person who I've purchased this book from recently, whose annotations and stuff are still in the book. That's delightful, and I'm going to put this on my mass market paperback shelf. Okay, we have Tess of the D'Urbervilles. We have some more William Kent Kruger, which I am hopefully going to get to very shortly. We have Women of the Silk by Gail Tsukiyama, which is a book that I actually am planning on reading for a vlog project that I haven't gotten around to yet, and I don't know when I'm going to. I think this is another one that's going to go in our Read It or Unhaul It pile because I honestly do not know if I'm going to enjoy this or not. You guys, this is just embarrassing. I have too many books. I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here with me today. The Given Day by Dennis Lehane. I'm planning on reading that soon. I've got some more William Kent Kruger, the first two books in his detective novel series. The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which apparently everyone's very excited for me to read, which is kind of interesting and cool. Long Bright River by Liz Moore. This is one that I had purchased that, again, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it, so this might need to be a Read It or Unhaul It challenge book. I think it's a modern mystery thriller about two sisters, one of whom is a detective, I think, and the other one is a addict living on the streets, which I thought would be a really interesting read, but again, it's one of those books that I've just never reached for. Then we have Shout of the Wind. We have Charlie Donnelly, Long Time Gone, which, again, I have no idea. I 3-starred my last Charlie Donnelly book, and I won this one in a giveaway. So I anticipate maybe enjoying this. I don't know. I'm hoping to enjoy it even more than I enjoyed the first one of his that I read. So I don't want to get rid of that one yet. This one, I don't know. This one sounds really interesting. This one is about the Empress. I don't know how to say that name. Cixi? Hello, Pippin. Are you helping? He's like, Mom, why are you on the floor? But I don't know if I have the headspace for this book, to be perfectly honest. Pippin, you fit on the shelf. I think this would be really interesting to read. I just don't know if I have it in me to read it right now. This one might be a Read It or Unhaul It challenge. All right, we've shifted a few books into the Read It or Unhaul It challenge pile. Now we are going to go on to the books that are actually on the shelf. Let me move those out of the way. See, this is the problem. I don't know that many of these... Okay, never mind. Jurassic Park. I think this is a Read It or Unhaul It challenge book for me because I don't know if I'm going to enjoy reading this story as much as I enjoyed watching it. I think this is one that we can safely put in the Read It or Unhaul It challenge. Do I have Pride and Prejudice? Right up here. Yeah, I think I could maybe move these to my mass market paperback shelf because I think they would fit. And that would give me a little bit more room over here. Also, The Death of Ivan Ilyich is literally one of the tiniest books I own. So I think that one can go over there as well, and that would give us a little bit more space. Pippin is back. He has decided that we are not, excuse you, that we are not doing a good enough job without him. So let's put some of these in on the shelf. That is lovely. And then we're going to put this little stack back here. Pippin is being very helpful. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Guys, I think we have enough room to put The Last Ronin actually on the shelf. That's lovely. That makes me very happy. All right, we're going to move this over here. Be careful and don't knock anything over. So, I think most of these I am planning on keeping. So I think that's it for this shelf, but we did get some space. There's actually some white space on the shelf. And again, a lot of these books I have not read yet, and it's hard for me to gauge. Like, I don't want to let them go too soon and have really enjoyed them possibly. We're going to move over to the Cubby shelves, and I think we're just going to stay on the floor so that I don't have to get up and then get back down. All right, let's move over this way. All right, so these two shelves here on the bottom, we are not really going to be touching because most of these are review copies that I have been very generously sent by authors. So these are ones that I have not read yet, and I do not plan on unhauling them, obviously, until I have read them, and most likely will not be unhauling them. Okay, so down here we have one last little cubby of all of my translated fiction that I'm planning on reading this year. I've got my S.E. Hinton collection over there. And those are both categories of books that I am planning on reading here in the next year, so we're gonna leave those alone. This is my Songs of Chaos collection from Michael R. Miller. I'm gonna be keeping those because I do definitely want to be continuing the series. You know, to be perfectly honest, I'm not entirely sure why I have a copy of my book on that shelf, but I would like to have a shelf of all of my books at some point. And the other books on that shelf I'm honestly just going to leave alone for now because I still want to read them. Actually, though, I have held this book up in so many videos, you guys. So many videos at this point. I love this book. It's one of my favorite covers I've ever purchased. I don't usually get caught by the cover buy bug. This one, absolute cover buy, because it's beautiful. However, I have picked it up and put it back so many times that I think this is another one that needs to go in our Read It or Unhaul It pile. Moving right over here, these are two shelves that probably aren't going to be moved around a whole lot either. Savage Song and Dark Duet duology, my Sebastian de Castells, Zero Boxer by Fonda Lee, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which I'm actually really excited to read in the near future. And then this is my Leigh Bardugo Six of Crows duology and my Hunger Games set, as well as Six of Crows by Elizabeth Lynn, which I'm also very excited to read. So these are all books that I'm probably not going to touch a whole lot either. I'm going to have a harder time with the fantasy shelves if I'm being totally honest, I think. Maybe, maybe not. But a lot of these I have actually gone through fairly recently to pull out books that I don't think I want to keep. And so most of these are books that I want to keep. Minus these two, which I only feel obligated to keep because I'm actually seriously considering unhauling these. I don't know, maybe at some point. I'm not at that point yet. I've seriously considered it. Kind of wish I hadn't liked Lightbringer as much because then I wouldn't have any qualms about getting rid of these 3 books, but I'm not going to do that. So we're going to keep these for now, but that is something where, depending on how the series ends, that could be something that I let go of. Okay, moving into our final cubby shelf right here. All right, so the one that I'm really iffy on is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. This is a chunky book, and like I've said before, I don't have a problem with chunky books. I do love a chunky book. However, this one, from everything I know about it, my husband read it, he enjoyed it, but he's pretty iffy on whether or not he thinks that I'm gonna like it. He thinks I'm gonna like aspects of it. So what he suggested doing is probably what I'm gonna end up doing, and that's testing it and seeing how I feel about a few of the pages, and then unhauling it from there. So I think Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell is also gonna go in my read it or unhaul it challenge pile, which means that I can put my other book here. I don't think I have room to put anybody else from this shelf, so we're just going to put Carol Berg back in there. You know, it's a little better. All right, guys, we are back up off the floor, and my back is so grateful for that. But this is my first fantasy shelves after the Cubbies. Okay, another book that I'm not really sure if I'm going to actually enjoy is Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. I know that this is the loose inspiration for Blade Runner. I don't know if this is going to be something I jive with or not. I honestly don't know. So I think that I'm going to put this in the Read It or Unhaul It challenge video, vlog, pile, and we're going to check it out from there. I'm really not sure if I'm going to like this trilogy, the Five Warrior Angels trilogy by Brian Lee Durfee. Brian is an awesome guy, and I think he is the coolest. The series, I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to land on it, and as you can see, they are quite chunky and take up a lot of space. So I'm trying to decide if I want to kind of test Forgotten Moon and see how I feel about it. I think we're going to leave this one alone for now, but this is another one that I'm still kind of iffy about. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about it. Okay, guys, next shelf. So this is underneath the Malazan shelf, and as you can see, I have my Riverfall Chronicles series here, which I absolutely love. This one will not be going anywhere. One of my favorite indie series. I've got Duncan Hamilton's Dragon Slayer trilogy here, which I read a long time ago, and I like enough to keep it, because this is one that I think I would like to keep for, you know, my son to read at some point, and my husband I think might enjoy this. The First Girl Child by Amy Harmon. This is one that I did read a while back. I enjoyed it. I don't see myself going back to it. However, I will recommend this book for anybody who's looking for a fantasy with a romantic element that is pretty strong, that isn't super toxic. This one I actually really enjoyed, but it's a book, again, that I don't know that I see myself returning to at any point, so I think this one is going to go in the unhaul pile. Which means that we can then put Mr. Rob J. Hayes on the shelf, and we only have one book. So it would be really cool if I could... Okay, here's what I know. Where Loyalties Lie by Rob J. Hayes. I am a big fan of Rob J. Hayes' Mortal Techniques series. This is a SPIFBO winner, self-published fantasy blog off winner, that I have been meaning to read for a long time. I don't know, again, how I'm going to feel about it, so this one I think is actually going to go in my Read It or Unhaul It pile, because I've picked it up a few times. It's a pirate fantasy, which sounds really cool. I just don't know if the humor level, I've skimmed a couple of the first few pages, I don't know if the humor level is going to be what I'm looking for, so I think this one is going to go in the Read It or Unhaul It pile. I believe that that means we do not have a stack on this shelf anymore, which is very exciting. I'm going to be totally honest, I don't know how I'm going to feel about Dune. Nobody panic. I don't know yet. Alright guys, as you can see, we have another stack. And it is Juliette Marillier books, which I am definitely not going to be getting rid of, but I don't have space for them on this shelf right now, so we're going to put them down there. Alex Hudson, James Islington, Memories of Blood and Shadow, which I have been told by some close friends that I will really enjoy. We've got Howard Andrew Jones, who recently passed away, unfortunately, but did some incredible classic fantasy stories that I'm excited to read book 2 for. We've got some Guy Gavriel Kay. Again, I have no idea how I'm going to feel about Guy Gavriel Kay. And then we have Mercedes Lackey. We have J.F. Lee. This is one, Sword of Sorrow, Blade of Joy. I love some Asian-inspired fantasy, you guys, as you well know. But this is one that I've picked up a couple times, and I just don't know if the writing style is going to be my jam. So I think this one's going to go in the Read It or Unhaul It challenge pile. The rest of these books, again, are books that either I haven't read yet or I have read and want to keep. But we did pull a book, so let's put the Book of Zog with the rest of the Alec Hudson books, and then I think we can fit the other J.F. Lee book in here. Beautiful. All right, that's that for that shelf. Alright guys, so here is the bottom shelf. I did move a stack of books that I am keeping. Over here on the bottom shelf, I have been holding on to this trilogy by Duncan M. Hamilton called The Wolf of the North. It's this one, and then The Blood Debt, and Jorandir's Path. These are all books that were indie published before he was picked up by the Trad Company for his Dragon Slayer series, and I'd really like to try this series, but I don't know. I'm not really feeling a ton of Norse fiction right now, so I might put this one in my Read It or Unhaul It pile because I have almost picked this up so many times and still have not gotten around to it, so I think that trilogy is going to go in our Read It or Unhaul It pile. Beyond that, this whole shelf is full of books that I would still like to read or have read and really enjoyed. I have my really nice hardcover Collation Saga books down here that I still need to Mylar wrap. There's a whole bunch of books on my shelves that are waiting patiently for Mylar wrap. And then the Blackwing Raven's Mark series, which I really want to try, by Ed McDonald. There's a lot of books down here that I'm really excited to get to, so I think that is everything we're going to pull off this shelf. Alright guys, we're going to briefly talk about my manga shelf up here, because I do have a book that I am not sure how I'm going to feel about. And that is Blade of the Immortal Omnibus. I am thinking about putting this in my Read It or Unhaul It pile. This is one that I've reached for a few times, and again, it's one that I just don't know if I'm going to enjoy it or not. So I'm going to put this in my Read It or Unhaul It pile for the vlog, or multiple vlogs. At this point, we're looking at multiple vlogs, okay? But it's a challenge that I'm really excited about. And this is one that I think I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about. And if I don't love it, I'd love to get it off my shelves. Other than that, these are all books that I am very excited to read. So I'm actually going to leave those alone for now and come back to that shelf later. All right, moving on to my final large shelf and the top of it. These, I have a lot of indie books up here. I have some KJ Parker books up here, which is, I read a KJ Parker book recently and really loved it. I have Philip C. Quaintrell's Echo Saga first book, his first Broken Binding edition of A Time of Dragons from my good friend Chris Navo. So big thanks to Chris for sending me that. It's a beautiful book. It's also very chunky. I love this purple though. We've got a couple more indie books, and then we have the start of my Sun Eater collection, which, as you guys know, I recently read Empire of Silence and really liked it, so I'm not planning on doing really anything with this shelf. There are a bunch of books on this shelf that, again, I want to read and I'm really excited about, so I'm going to leave this shelf alone for now. Alright, the second shelf is a lot of Anthony Ryan, who is an author that I've only read Blood Song by, and that's it, but I'm really excited to read more of his work. I want to continue with the series that I've read of his, and I need to read his new arc, The Feeding, which is a dystopian thriller, kind of. The rest of my Sun Eater series is down here, and then it's a lot of Anthony Ryan, which I need to read more of, because I read one book of his and immediately bought a lot of his other work, which I have a concerning habit of doing when I find an author that I really love, which I can understand. I am giving myself credit for that, but also I should probably start with one and then keep going. And then at the very end we have the last of my Brandon Sanderson collection, which brings me to a point that I forgot to mention early on when I was showing you books that I am planning on getting rid of. And that is my Stormlight Archive trade paperbacks. I really debated on this one for a while, but honestly, I am ready to let go of the Stormlight Archive, and I do not see myself reading Wind and Truth at any point in the future, near future at least, and if I do, I can get it from the library. But that freed up a lot of room on my shelf, as you can see. So these books will be leaving my collection after I do one final video that I'm working on with the series, and that will be the end of that. Okay, down one more shelf, and we have a lot of other books that I'm really excited to get to. And again, this is the hard part about my fantasy shelves, is that I keep them pretty up to date. I have gotten rid of a lot of books in the last 6 months from these shelves, which is probably why it seems like I'm not getting rid of a lot, because I've already gotten rid of a lot, so in my defense. But I don't think that there's any on this shelf that I desperately want to get rid of. I've debated on whether or not to let go of my Sword of Kaigen paperback, because I do have the hardcover special edition from Wraithmarked, and I also have the second Wraithmarked edition coming at some point whenever it's done. Do I need 3 copies of the same book? No. One of the reasons I don't buy a ton of special editions is because I like reading the paperbacks. So I have a hard time justifying buying special editions of books that I don't absolutely love, because they're basically just shelf ornaments for me, because I don't mark them up. I like annotating. I don't annotate in those, which maybe at some point I'll get comfortable enough to do that, but for now I'm not. I think the shelf we're gonna leave alone for now. Alright, you guys, the last big bookshelf, because the one underneath this is full of my binders of card collections, so we're not gonna be doing anything with those. But as you can see, we have another stack. Here we are again. This shelf again has some books that in the future I might let go of. These 2 books are ones that I'm really struggling with, because I did enjoy Rage of Dragons, but I don't know that it's a book that I desperately feel the need to own. I do want to try reading Fires of Vengeance and see what I think of that one. But again, I didn't love them enough to maybe have them on my shelves. So I think this set I might actually pull off my shelves and potentially unhaul. I'm still going to read Fires of Vengeance, so I might try to get that on my TBR sooner rather than later, so I can kind of see what I think of it. Yay, you guys, we got rid of books. My goodness, you guys, we only have one book, one anthology up here still, which is very exciting. Moving past my Jannyworts collection, I probably should have left this at the half price books that I found it at, because this is like book 8 or 9, I think, in the series. And I haven't even started book 1 yet, so that was maybe a little premature of me, but we're just gonna roll with it. These 2, A Hero Born and A Bond Undone by Jin Yong, are books that I am excited to read, but I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about them. I'm probably going to do a buddy read with my friend Casey, and we're going to see what we think. But this is a set of books that could potentially come off my shelves at some point if I don't end up loving them. But for now, they're going to stay where they're at. The only other one that I'm really trying to decide on is When Swords Fall Silent by all of these wonderful authors. This is an anthology that I purchased from Wraithmarked, and it has a bunch of authors that we know and love here in the SFF community. Michael Sullivan, Marie Brennan, Andrew Rowe, David Dalglish, R.J. Barker, Jonathan French, Bryce O'Connor, Peter Flannery, Luke Chimlenko, Emel Wong, Philip C. Quaintrell, J.E. Andrews, Jay Boyce, and Terry Manker. This should be amazing. The thing that I'm struggling with a little bit is I'm not a short story person, typically speaking, especially not in fantasy. When I go into fantasy, I want to dig into a world. I want to be there. And I know that a lot of these are probably giving us a little bit of a taste test for the worlds that these authors have created, but that's not really my style when it comes to finding new authors. So this is one that I think I'm actually going to put in the Read It or Unhaul It pile, because if I don't love it, I really would like to pass it on to a collector who missed out on the Kickstarter and would really, really love to have this book in their collection. Because again, like I said, short stories aren't really my thing as a reader. So I'm not entirely sure, like I don't feel drawn to picking this up, which is a problem because I'm sure that there are some amazing short stories in this collection. It's a me thing, not an it thing. But I think I want to put it in the read or unhaul pile and just try it and see how I feel about some of the stories and if I want to keep it. All right, you guys, we are over at my little mass market and small paperback bookshelf over here in the corner of my room, and I have brought with us some books to try and fit on this shelf. So this is my incentive to try to get these books to fit on this small paperback shelf, because there is no reason why these books need to be taking up space on the bigger bookshelves. They can just cozy up over here and that'll be great. Okay, so like I said before, my mass market paperbacks are a struggle for me, and that's really sad because I do really love them, but I am having a really hard time with my thumb joints reading the mass market paperbacks, and I just prefer the comfort of a trade paperback a lot more. That's my preferred reading format. So we're gonna go through these, and this is an area where I think we're actually gonna get rid of quite a few of these books because I just don't feel like I can comfortably read them very much anymore, and I would love to pass them on to somebody who loves mass market paperbacks because I know that you guys are out there and I appreciate you. So my original Mistborn trilogy, this one's a little tougher for me just because this was literally one of the first adult fantasy series that I ever read, and I would like to keep my original mass market paperbacks for nostalgia's sake, so I think those are definitely going to stay on the shelf. I am going to pull out Dawn Shard by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella within the Stormlight Archive, and as you saw over on my other shelves, I am letting Stormlight Archive go finally, which feels very liberating, and it is a little bittersweet because it's a series that I really enjoyed the first part of it and really enjoyed talking about it on my channel, but it's time to move on to other things. Moving on, I do have the Empire trilogy by Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wirtz. I picked this up at a library sale and I was so elated to get all three of the books together, and I still want to read this trilogy desperately. However, again, I don't know that I want to read it in mass market paperback. So I think this is another trilogy that I'm going to remove off the shelves, and I'm going to be looking for larger reading options for this trilogy. And I don't know when I'm going to get to it either. These are absolutely beautiful little books. I really love them, so it's sad to let them go. But again, I know that if I'm going to dig into a series that Janny Wirtz was involved in and Raymond Feist, I definitely want to have a comfortable reading experience in terms of the format. After that is my copy of Ender's Game. And again, this is a book that I read a long time ago and really loved, but I'd really like to upgrade to a trade paperback so that I can put it next to my Ender's Shadow trade paperback and they will match, and it will be much easier to read if I go back to it. Moving on, Andre Norton's Wind in the Stone, which is a book that is not the first in a series, I believe. I think there's actually a book that comes before this. I won't get to this before I get to the first book in the series, which I don't own. So I think I'm going to let this one go as well because I don't know when I'm going to start the series, and I want to start with a trade paperback of the first book. I will be keeping my horribly beat up old mass market paperback of Dead House Gates because this was the first version of this book that I ever read. I know it looks appalling, but this one again is going to stay with my Mistborn series because it is near and dear to my heart, and I really love it, even with all its flaws. I will tape this, I promise. I know that there are people in the audience right now clutching their pearls. I'm so sorry. Another trilogy that I'm going to be rehoming is the Fitz and the Fool trilogy by Robin Hobb. Not because I don't want to read it, I do, and I've actually already read Fool's Assassin accidentally because I live under a rock and I didn't know that there were books in between the end of Farseer and the Fitz and the Fool trilogy. Had a great time with it, really enjoyed it, but I stopped, thankfully, before getting getting to the last 2 books. So I'm gonna leave this series for somebody else. They're great books, and I'm looking forward to reading them once I get that far in the series. But again, I want to get the trade paperbacks. They will be much more comfortable for me to read. Which brings me to David Gemmell's Legend. I really enjoyed this book. I had a great time with it when I read it a couple of years ago, and I do want to keep it. However, I am going to switch this one out for a trade paperback. So I'm going to take all of my little tabs out, and along with my Legend book, I also have The King Beyond the Gate and also Dress the Legend. I do desperately want to read both of these as well, but I do want to upgrade them to the trade paperbacks. I am going to keep this Dragonlance mass market paperback for now because the skinnier mass market paperbacks are a little bit easier for me to read. I don't have as much of a hard time with those. I'm trying to decide about my Agatha Christie's, you guys. The thing with these is they're pretty floppy, and they've got pretty large print. I cannot believe that I'm talking about large print. I'm not that old, but a little bit. And I have Murder on the Orient Express and Then There Were None, which are both books that I'm really excited to read. And these I think I'm going to keep for now because I think they're thin enough and the font is large enough that it's not going to be a tricky reading experience. This is one that I think I'm also going to keep, Elvenbane by Andre Norton and Mercedes Lackey. It's a super old beat up paperback that is so broken in that I think it's going to be a lot easier to read. So I'm going to keep that one. I'm also going to keep a few of my Terry Pratchett books for now until I upgrade them to these trade paperback versions. Although my Going Postal book, I do own the hardcover of this, so I think I'm going to let that one go as well. All right, we're gonna go down to the bottom shelf, and I'm not entirely sure if you're gonna be able to see it all, but we're gonna try. All right, guys, here is the bottom row of books. There are some books up on the top, which I should pull out. I think that's everything on the top. We have Green Rider by Kristen Britton. This is, sorry, my pant leg is in the way. This is a book that I do really want to read, but again, I'd like to switch it out for the trade paperback, so I think I'm going to let that one go as well. And then The First Black Company by Glenn Cook. I have read this. I didn't love it, so I don't plan on continuing, and I don't really feel the need to keep it on my shelves. So I think this one is going to go as well. Andre Norton's Sargasso of Space. This is a older, more rare edition, I think, of one of her science fiction works. This one I am going to keep because, as you can see, it's super tiny and I don't think it's going to be really that hard to read. So I'm going to put that back up. Maybe I'm going to put it back up on the shelf. We'll just set it there for now. Where the Mountain Meets the Moon is a book that I've picked up and put back quite a few times, which I'm sure you're sick of me saying at this point, but there's quite a few of those on my shelves. So I want to put this in my Read It or Unhaul It vlog video so I can see if it's something that I actually want to read or if it's time to let it go. I'm really struggling with my Jane Lindskold Through Wolf's Eyes and Wolf's Head with Wolf's Heart. I've read Through Wolf's Eyes and really enjoyed it quite a few years ago, and I want to continue on with the series, but this is another one that I might check to see if I can get trade paperback editions of these and then replace them, and if not, then I will probably keep these mass market paperbacks. So I'm going to leave those on the shelf for now. I'm going to keep my R.A. Salvatore books, the first Drizzt book, and The Thousand Orcs. Michael Sullivan, Age of Myth. This is a book that I do desperately want to read, but I'm going to trade it out for the trade paperback because I don't like these tall, skinny mass market paperbacks very much. They're harder to read, so I'm going to put that one in the Unhaul pile. Dragon Prince by Melanie Ron. This is another one that I kind of want to check and see if I can get it as a trade paperback, and then because this one, yeah, this is such a chunky book, and I don't know that I'd be able to comfortably read it, so we're going to let that one go as well. Darini Rising by Katherine Kurtz. This one is a smaller book, so I think this one we're going to keep. Giles Christian's Blood Eye, which is another historical fiction I want to read. Again, kind of thinner, so I'm going to leave that up on the top shelf. We've got Captain Blood by Raphael Savatini, which we're also going to keep on the top shelf. And then we have Frank Peretti's This Present Darkness, which is, again, a book that I have wanted to read, but I keep putting it back on the shelf because it's a mass market paperback and it's a little bit chunkier and harder to read. So I think we're going to let this one go as well. 3 by Ted Dekker. This is a book that I have put back so many times. I don't know if it's going to be a little too horror vein for me. I think this one's actually going to go in the Read It or Unhaul pile challenge. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This one is a tiny little mass market paperback, and I don't think that one's going to be a problem, so we're going to keep that. We have A Plague of Giants by Kevin Hearn, which again is a book that I really would like to read. I just don't know if I want to read it in mass market paperback. So this is another one that I think I'm going to look through and see if I can find the trade paperback edition. Then we have Daughter of the Forest by Juliette Marillier, which I did read at the beginning of last year and absolutely loved it. But again, I'd really like to replace it with a trade paperback edition to go in my Juliette Marillier collection, so I'm going to put that down. I think I'm actually going to look at that for the entire Seven Waters series. I do want to replace these with trade paperback editions because those are going to be easier to read. There are a couple of other Juliette Marillier books. I have Heart's Blood by her, which is a standalone Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I also have Dreamer's Pool, which is the first book in her Blackthorn and Grimm series, which she says is her best work. So I do want to keep those two for now. And then I have my Patricia McKillop The Forgotten Beasts of Eld, which I am going to keep because I did enjoy that book, but we're just going to put it, I think, up on this shelf. Which leaves us all of this room for the books that I brought over to put here, and I think they're all going to fit. So let's put those away on the shelf. I can always rearrange these later. We're just going to try and kind of get them on the shelf for now, and then I'll see what I want to do with them in terms of how we are going to reorganize them later. But look at that. There's going to be so much space for me to go over to the other shelves and find some smaller books that I can put here to give us more room on the big shelves, and that is really exciting. Look at all of this shelf space, you guys, that I can put other books here from the other shelves. I'm so excited about it. My Greenbone Saga extra books are down here because I have the Broken Binding editions up on my favorite shelf, so I don't need these on the shelves. Okay, you guys, we've been through all of the bookshelves, and at first I was feeling a little down on myself and was worried that I wasn't doing a very good job getting rid of books, but to be perfectly honest, that's not half bad, in my opinion. I think that's pretty good. What do you guys think? I would say probably only one stack of these I'm thinking about potentially replacing with larger copies. I don't know yet. We'll see. And we have two giant piles. This is pile 1 and this is pile 2 of the Read It or Unhaul It challenge that I would like to do, and I am definitely going to be doing multiple videos of that, clearly, based on the piles that I just held up. So I'm feeling pretty good about it because I know that there are some of the books in the Read It or Unhaul It challenge pile that I will be getting rid of. I feel like we're doing pretty well, you guys. I feel really good about where we're at. I feel really good about letting go of some of these books and moving some things. I was able to fill up a little bit of that mass market paperback shelf with some books from the other shelves and get more room over there. So yeah, I feel really good about it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and keeping me company while I was doing the really heartbreaking work of going through my bookshelves. But doing this honestly always feels very liberating, more than I think it's going to, because I know that I'm making room for things that I really care about, and we have to protect our time, right? I talk about this a lot on my channel, where if you DNF a book or you decide it's not for you, that's okay, because we only have a finite number of years to spend on this earth, a finite number of days to spend reading, and I think it's really important for us to be selective and intentional about the books that we read, and that's what I'm trying to do more of. So I feel awesome with all of these books leaving the nest and hopefully going to some new homes with people that will be very excited to get them. And yeah, a successful first overview shelf unhaul. I'm sure there will be more in the future, but that is all from me today. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. I hope you are reading some 5-star reads and keeping 5-star reads on your shelves, and I will see you in the next video.